Electoral Bill, Senate reps may clash over e-transmission of results. I recall that they are slated to meet at a conference. And then also you'd have the next story there on page 10 saying Ghana defrauding Nigerians with fake COVID-19 test results. That's according to senators. You'd also see military fighter jet bombs fishermen in Borno. Quite sad there. It's almost very difficult to distinguish between the terrorists and innocent Nigerians these days. The lead story, you would see 2023 expectations, doubts as Jega, Utomi, others mobilize against APC and PDP. Why movement will fail, lawyers are saying. And also you'd find the other writers saying present arrangement favors two parties, dons. They are not a threat. PDP and APC are responding to this move. You would see also the pictorial there showing you the commotion yesterday in Abuja when the members of the Shiite group went on a procession leading to clash between security forces. It caused quite a very, very heavy gridlock yesterday within and around the city. There were different attacks that we are seeing, from the pictures you see very, very quite pathetic scenes. Also, you'd see below that 5 killed as security men dispersed Shiites procession in Abuja. Below that, unremitted taxes, 77 oil and gas firms owe FG 2.7 trillion naira. Cashless policy, court stops CBN's deposit withdrawal levies. Northern elders, Middle Belt Forum disagree over power shift. Well, this discussion has been on since yesterday, but let's take a look at the lead story on the Daily Trust about 2023. A whole lot of conversation is gone up. Yesterday we saw that the northern governors and traditional rulers are, rejecting the position of the southern counterparts. And also today we're seeing what we now recognize in Nigeria as the third force, the movement that is, expected to dethrone the current political structure. What are your thoughts on that? We have people who are skeptical about this move.
Yeah, I think that brings again to the fore some of the conversations we had the last time. I also belong to those people who are a bit skeptical about the intent or the intentions of the people behind it. Of course, you cannot doubt the integrity of the likes of Jega and Utomi, but what our experience in the past has always been is how dedicated are they to this cause, and what is the broad agenda of this cause. Let us not continue to masquerade individual intentions, under these kind of structures, because that is where the failures begin to creep in. Some people will come in for the right intentions, but the moment they understand that there is no transparency around how you then develop what becomes a proper, you are not able to articulate something different from what we currently have. They begin to excuse themselves from those arrangements, So I hope they get it right this time, honestly, because for the sake of every Nigerian, as we say in the case of monopoly, and it is important we begin to get a voice that would challenge the status quo in this country.
Looking at the past, why do you think that it's almost, why do you think that there are doubts, over this move? One will think that this is what majority of Nigerians should think about, given the fact that many people have said, well, these APC and PDP, they are all of the same. We'll be recycling them over and over and all over that. And yet it's been difficult to really bring Nigerians together.
Yeah, so quite a number of reasons. First of all, oftentimes what we see taught for us are people who are unable to find spaces in the PDP and APC. So we are not sure whether they are going to be any different.
they have
Right.
not been
If
able
you-
to find space, or they wouldn't want to join those parties.
Well, it's not a question of not wanting to join. In the past, we have seen a movement that included Gali Naba. He has had it all in the PDP. With this third force, we have people like Governor Abdul Fattah, whose property was moved against by AMCON. He was a former two-time governor, in fact, of Kwara State. So the question really would be, what else is he looking for? He was in the PDP, then in the APC, then in the new PDP. So, it is the presence of personalities like this that for some of us, we begin to wonder whether it is not same old, and then, who are the financial backers? Who is bankrolling all of this? What are their agenda beyond power? Beyond just emerging as the party with the presidency, So we want to see a thought force that transcends just gunning for political offices to interrogating every facet of our society, take up issues. What we want is conversations around broad alternatives, and then we take it up from it. Right now, that is not happening.
Do you think that Nigerians should perhaps consider something like crowdfunding, for things like this?
Which is the ideal. That is what we see everywhere around the world. Even with a President Trump, who was a billionaire in his own right, he didn't fund his campaign from his pocket. Those campaigns were funded by people who believed in his ideology. So this whole conversation around TOSFA should not just be about these few persons who are leading the conversation, which is okay by me. We want to see credible individuals across the 36 states, and including the FCT, having this kind of convergence. And therefore, we begin to take them seriously. What we see right now is just an arrangement that seemed to be, prominent in Abuja and perhaps Lagos, and that is all that there is to it. So at what point do we begin to cascade these ideas? And how did you even come about this idea? Yes, Nigerians are looking forward to an arrangement like this, but is it a bottom-up arrangement or a top-bottom arrangement? And at what point will they begin to take ownership of it and begin to see what you do? Because grassroots mobilization for ideas like this are really very key. So for me, it would have made sense that they are mobilizing from several states, getting people to key into these ideas, and then the whole conversation around crowdfunding will begin to take shape naturally. The more people are confident about what you are doing, the more likely they are able to say, okay, take this 1,000 widows mite of mine to drive this agenda. If I'm unable to participate physically, at least I can do some financial supporting.
All right, then we'll take a look at other issues. Now, the clash between security forces and the Shiite group is not new to us. I mean, we've always seen this. It has always happened. And despite all of this clash, despite the results, the consequence killing of, I don't know whether to say protesters, we keep seeing them coming out again. They are not relenting in any way.
Every time these things happen, I have cause to reflect about the quality of training that our personnel actually get. It questions the whole conversation around military-civil relationship. Do security forces even understand the place of civilians? Do they think that they are working for the government is it a government versus the citizen kind of arrangement, or that you swore to protect the rights of the citizens, and not to carry out every kind of order at all costs in violation of your primary calling? So you begin to wonder, what kind of people do we have? Because we complain about brutal killing. In your opening remarks, you talked about how people showed up in school and shot brazenly at young stars who were merely sleeping, unprovoked. This is the same thing. Do they understand that the Constitution of this country guarantees peaceful protest?
So it's almost becoming like the ordinary citizen is in between the security forces that are meant to protect him and criminals.
Absolutely.
And receiving heat from both sides.
Absolutely. You know how you'll be driving on Nigerian roads sometimes and you wish there were nobody, that the presence of these security men don't give you any comfort because it opens you up to all kind of extortions. That is where we are getting to. That is the reality. Yes, these people may have come out to protest. Yes, those protests may have led to some kind of, it may have stifled movement and all of that.
From eyewitnesses, it was a procession.
Yes.
There was any form of protest or any kind of public disorder, that was caused.
Matter of fact, it started 2 days ago, right? And what was the response of our security forces? Shut down the city. I was caught in that trap for 4 hours, 30 minutes, and I was supposed to take my COVID shot yesterday. That was messed up. If I had this appointment this morning, there was no way I would have made it. Imagine an emergency case in that lockdown, simply because you wanted to stop a protest, that you could possibly have reached out to the leaders of this group and understand them and probably create a barrier, perhaps, that will allow these protests go on and allow people go about their daily activities to earn a living. But instead, both the people they were targeting and the innocent Nigerians who were supposed to meet up with other obligations were shut down. A show of force that I really do not understand what it was meant to achieve. And then in the fracas that ensued, you killed 5. And that is all that there is to it, numbers. And today we move on. That's 5 lives that had been cut short, maybe women, maybe children, who basically felt they were trying to speak to some persons in authority about how they feel dissatisfied about how one of their own has been treated. A constitutionally guaranteed action. But what happens? They are killed, lives snuffed out of them. We would hear nothing about who carried out this dastardly act. There are gory images that are flying around on social media. We are not able to confirm the authenticity right now. Yes. But if what we saw with the security men on uniform doing, then they are not any different from the people who refer to as bandits. If you could be flashing a jackknife at a protesting citizen and threatening to stab or even stabbing, what difference are you from the bandit, really? So it calls to question the kind of training they have. Are we recruiting another kind of bandit into uniforms? It calls for worry.
And this, it appears as if, looking at how the whole insurgency in the Northeast started, a lot of people said, well, lessons have not been learned.
Absolutely.
Even with the whole IPOB situation.
Absolutely. We are very terrible with managing civil-military relationship. That is what our history has shown. And like you rightly mentioned, this incident just come and go. Nobody is taking responsibility, and so lessons will not be learned. We have not heard of anybody being fired. You and I know how the Black Lives Matter incidents ended. That trial was public. Chivney was eventually jailed. At least there was a closure for the family of the deceased. Even the world came to understand that justice has been served. Maybe not in the manner that they wanted, but justice has been served. In our own case, these things happen. Nobody is prosecuted. No action. The worst is you hear the military coming out to issue statements like, we will investigate these things and it will not let it lie low. Only a couple of days ago, we saw videos making the rounds of a military female officer brutalizing another female, a corps member on national service at the camp for merely exchanging pleasantry with her own colleague. And she felt this person was a second-class citizen who should not exchange or maintain cordial relationship with a military officer. Where do we get that kind of perception from? You start asking, she shouldn't have been or couldn't have been more than 5-7 years in the service. Where was the place of her 5 years in training at the NDA? Those are the kind of questions we should be. What does the NDA mold out into the society? People who respect citizens' rights while defending them against external attack, or people who come in and add to whatever the citizens are already going through. So it costs to, should be some kind of review. Yes, you are military, you have a different kind of training, but uppermost in that consideration is the protection of the right and liberty of the citizen.
All right, then. Let's take a look at other papers this morning. The Punch newspaper. We have at the very top, Nexim votes 36 billion naira for SMEs export business in 36 states. That's on page 30. You'd also see below that Northern governors under fire over silence as Kaduna death toll hits 51. You would also see the next story there saying petrol landing cost now 278 naira, says Moman. Crude reaches $80. That's per barrel. You would also see the lead story there saying FG releases fresh debtors list, November 77. Oil firms owe 2.66 trillion naira. The writer there says firms fail to remit petroleum profit tax, income tax, education tax, VAT, and others. We are partnering EFCC, NFIU to recover 2.66 trillion naira from oil firms, says agency. Also, you would find below the pictures there, it's an insult comparing me to Hush Puppy, says jailed Invictus Obi. You'd see Saraki, Gbemi Shola tackle Kwara governor over demolition of LG library. You'd also find Shiites clash with soldiers. Police in Abuja alleged 8 members killed. At the very bottom, develop Ondo Seaport, decongest Apapa gridlock, Akeredolu tells FG. Police comb waterways, others to free abducted retired general in Lagos. Restructuring, only solution must be done before 2023. Afenifere insists. Now, the conversation about this 2023 election is quite on the very high. We're seeing that virtually on every paper. And we're also expecting to see some kind of review of the Electoral Act, very soon and all of that. It appears that it's almost like a ritual now to review the Electoral Act each time the election period is approaching. Why do you think this is so?
Painfully, it does appear like a Nigerian thing. Yes, electoral acts are reviewed everywhere around the world, but not with the amount of frequency, the kind of frequency, right, that we see in Nigeria. It does appear like once the politicians go to the field and they feel like something in the act seems to have affected us negatively, we'll wait. By the next election, we've got to fix this in a manner, that will favor us. That's to put it mildly, But like you rightly mentioned, it has become a ritual. We see, but I'm not against fine tuning, if those kind of fine tuning, as we call it, will amount to an advancement of what we currently have, But to be thinking that in 2021. The debate is about not to transmit the results electronically or asking INEC, that is an independent body guaranteed by the Constitution, to then seek permission from another ministry headed by the government, a serving administration, to take permission to do what it is guaranteed to do, then begin to cause the question of that independence.
All right.
So these are the likely gray areas, and I'm sure that is why we think there's going to be some kind of firewalls, because the Senate are asking for those violations. The House of Representatives have voted for a result to be transmitted electronically. Let's hope that the people's expectations will prevail, when they come to the conference.
All right. Another story here of interest is the list released by the federal government. The lead story, actually, talking about how 77 oil firms owe 2.66 trillion naira. What do we know so far about this?
Yeah, I think the information, first of all, is coming from the audit of NAITI from a 2019 report. So to think that what you see in that list is even 2 years old means that if we get an updated list for 2020 and perhaps 2021, which is in the 10th month thereabout already, then you will be talking about twice as much, and to think that we'll allow this kind of loopholes at a time when we are shouting that revenues are not enough to meet public expenditure, it's huge. And if you look at the analogy of those laws, especially coming from company income tax, which is like 30% of profits, personal income tax, which is supposed to come from all staffs and all of that, you are talking about an amount that is equivalent to a fairly between 15 and 20 state governments' budgets put together. And these people are running business here. How do they continue to allow them run business legitimately when they are running short in taxes and the rest of that? Because they are becoming richer by tapping into the resources of your nation and then making you poorer if they do not remit taxes to you, because it is with those taxes that citizens can benefit from having these natural resources and say, okay, we are truly citizens of a resource-based nation, and these benefits we have to show for them, improve infrastructure, power, and all of that. So that's really huge. It's good to know that they said they are tapping on the EFCC and ICC, but I think the government needs to do better than that. If they were doing that, they would not have been worried about raising VAT from 5 to 7.5% and forcing people who are already complying to even pay more.
All right. Let me just quickly run through the Nation newspaper this morning. The stories actually are not any different. Daughter speaks on police chief slain by Lagos mob. You have hooded gunmen abduct ex-military chief in Lekki. Shiite police in Abuja. Bloody clash. Supreme Court Justice Oseji dies at 67. You'd also find the lead story there showing you North's elders to governors negotiate 2023 power shift. The rider to that, more knocks for North's governors from MBF, Ohaneze, Afenifere lawyers. You'd also find the This Day newspaper carrying some of the stories here. It says Buhari, that's at the very top of the This Day newspapers. It says Buhari funding police remains huge challenge for government. You'd see also Nati, 77 oil companies owing Nigeria 2.6 trillion naira unremitted funds. The lead story says 2023 Ohaneze Roas condemns northern governors, berates PDP. These are some of the stories. Like I said, they are not any different. Talking about funding for the police, the president is saying that it's becoming, it remains a challenge for us. Is that why the police system is still, kind of not having a good time?
You could say that. I was looking at a report some time ago. The Fire Service Department of New York has as much budget as the capital vote of Nigeria. But that's New York. Funding is a challenge, but what we are beginning to see in Nigeria is not a bigger challenge to even the quality of personnel. If you take somebody who is ill-trained, badly trained, and you armed him, what you have just armed is somebody who will go and cause the kind of situations that we see. So Nigerians are even asking questions around what they have done with the current vote, whatever they are getting. It is those kind of things that would justify more. You see police vehicles break down. You call them, odd hours, they are not available to move. We know these things boil down to funding, but how efficient have they been even with the little that has been given? It also speaks to the whole call by even the states for a state police. So if you can't do the funding alone, evolve a system that will allow the states, float structures that they can also take part of their own allocations to fund. And that eases the pressure on the federal government to do the kind of, because to be honest, the police ratio to civilians in Nigeria, it's very huge. We have less than 300,000 policemen in a country of 202 million people. That is grossly inadequate. more can be done, but if there are no funds to do more, then evolve ways to allow states run some kind of structures that eases this pressure on you.